Next stop everywhere.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Charles Skaggs, back in the TARDIS, once again with my wonderful partner in time, who should be more than rested from last week's vacation, Jesse Jackson. How you doing, Jesse?
I am good, Charles. I am ready to spend time in Amsterdam and Gallifrey, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes. I am good. I enjoyed the week off. I appreciate you guys taking care of everything while I'm gone, and I'm excited to talk a little Fifth Doctor today.
Yes. We're going to be talking My Doctor, so I'm obviously very excited. I hope Jesse is as well. As here in episode 205, we're going to talk Arc of Infinity. And this was the first serial from season 20 back in 1983. So we're looking, 37 years on this one?
Yeah.
No big deal. Written by Johnny Byrne, not to be confused with John Byrne. We've talked about this before.
Yes. Right.
So Johnny Byrne, he was the writer of The Keeper of Traken, the story that really got me hooked on Doctor Who. Okay. And so I owe him a big debt. And Warriors of the Deep, which was not a great story from Peter Davison's era, but that we've talked about on the podcast. And this was directed by Ron Jones, and of course stars Peter Davison as the Fifth Doctor, Janet Fielding returning to the TARDIS team at the very end of this episode as Tegan Jovanka, and of course Sarah Sutton as Nyssa of Traken. We've got our guest cast, and we got some trivia, but first I got to get your general thoughts on this, Jesse. I hope you enjoyed this one.
So it's 4 parts.
Yes, it is.
So it's very it was very accessible time wise.
Right. Not like an 8-parter like with the Invasion. Yeah.
Right. We get
it's only an hour and a half total.
Yeah, Tegan and Nyssa are not together, so they don't bicker.
Right.
Right. And we go to Gallifrey. Which I always think is interesting. So yes, this thing checks all the boxes to a absolutely wonderful episode.
Well, Tegan normally bickers with the Doctor. She doesn't really bicker with Nyssa so much.
When I've watched them, remember I've always watched it with the 3 of them, and they are constantly bickering together.
But they are very much like friends / almost sisters.
Yes, absolutely.
So
but it's good.
Sometimes sisters tend to do that.
I get it.
And best friends do too. But I'm glad you dug it. Glad I was checking all your boxes.
Absolutely.
Guest cast this time. Ian Collier plays Omega, taking over, from the previous actor who played Omega in The Three Doctors, which was a John Pertwee era story that we haven't talked about yet on Next Stop Everywhere. It's one of those we definitely have to hit one of these days. I'm saving that up for kind of a special anniversary type setting. And he's also played the character Stuart Hyde in another John Pertwee story, The Time Monster. And he's also returned as Omega in a Big Finish audio, which I'm holding up right now in my hot little hands, called Hey, Omega. Because that's an original story title.
It's almost like they work for the Titans.
Exactly. So this was a
Universe Titans.
Yeah, exactly. With that kind of level of creativity, right?
Yeah.
But it was another return where Omega versus the Fifth Doctor. So if you enjoyed Arc of Infinity, I definitely recommend checking out Omega as well. It's a great little audio, great performance by both Peter Davison and Ian Collier. And he also played character named Commander Salas in another Big Finish audio adventure, Excellus Decays, which was a Seventh Doctor Sylvester McCoy adventure.
So what I have to say first, Charles,
Yes.
is I am feeling like the young Jesse, as he was reading DC Comics, and Jack Kirby comes over to do Jimmy Olsen, the Forever People, and I go, hey, this villain Darkseid is so cool. And as Peter David told the famous story, he was talking, and Kirby goes, it's Darkseid.
Right.
So I am going Omega this whole time as I'm looking at the thing, and so I am feeling a little silly.
Yeah, this is the British pronunciation.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's not Omega. Or actually it's not Omega, I should say. It's not Omega, it's Omega. That's how they pronounce it over there. So it's a little different inflection.
Absolutely. But
still spelled the same way, just of course pronounced different. Michael Gough, who hopefully Jesse recognized because he turns up in this episode as Councilor Hedin, who is a very important character because he's revealed as the traitor to Gallifrey who's helping Omega. And he was previously in a William Hartnell era story, The Celestial Toymaker, which is another one we haven't talked about yet, as the big bad, the big villain, the Celestial Toymaker in that story. So it was very cool. All these years later, he returns to Doctor Who, and then just 6 years from now, he makes his debut as Alfred Pennyworth in the 1989 Tim Burton film Batman, starring, of course, Michael Keaton. And he reprised, of course, Alfred Pennyworth in 3 subsequent Batman movies, Batman Returns, Batman Forever, Batman and Robin, although we don't like to talk too much about Batman and Robin for obvious reasons. And he was also in another Tim Burton movie, Sleepy Hollow. And I just watched him recently, thanks to HBO Max, where he was in the very first Christopher Lee Dracula movie, Horror of Dracula.
Oh, okay.
So if you have HBO Max, I definitely recommend checking that out, especially before Halloween. It's great.
I recognized the face, and I knew that he had been a pretty successful and busy character actor. I had not connected the dots and saw that he was Alfred.
Oh, so you didn't recognize him as Alfred in this one?
I didn't right away. No, I just that's a very, this guy's done a lot of stuff. That's a very, that guy face,
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Well, we also had Leonard Sachs, who plays President Barusa, Lord President Barusa. And he previously appeared in a William Hartnell story, The Massacre, as Admiral Gaspard de Coligny. And he was also in another James Bond movie, Thunderball. So we have another Doctor Who James Bond connection. And we also had the actress, Elspeth Gray, as Chancellor Thalia. And she turned up years and years later in a Big Finish audio for the Eighth Doctor called Immortal Beloved as Hera. As in, like the Greek pantheon, wife of Zeus. Well, she turns up as Hera in that one. She's also been in episodes of Fawlty Towers, the John Cleese comedy, and she played the Queen in the very first series of Blackadder, starring Rowan Atkinson, which is hilarious. I highly recommend you check out Blackadder. And she was also in the movie Four Weddings and a Funeral. So, pretty notable actress over there in Britain. And we had Paul Jericho playing the Castellan, who returns in the Five Doctors, where he gets to utter the immortal line that's really, really bad. No, not the mind probe.
I love that. Well done. That's a really nice, dramatic reenactment.
Well, it was very cheesy delivered, and I'm sure, hopefully I did the cheesiness justice in the delivery.
Absolutely.
Interestingly, he was also in The Empire Strikes Back as an AT driver, AT-AT driver, and he was also in the movie Force 10 from Navarone with Harrison Ford.
Okay.
If you've seen that movie. Oh, by the way, we also have an actor, you may have heard of him. His name is Colin Baker, and he makes his debut here as Commander Maxil. I wonder what happened to him.
I know. For some reason, this is a lot more jarring than Capaldi,
yes.
Playing in the
Fires of Pompeii, yeah.
Yeah, it just, for some reason, this is, I think because he comes across very doctorish, the arrogance of, he plays
The
that.
Sixth Doctor, yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
So were you surprised to see him in this story? I presume you recognized him.
Yeah, and I knew because in different interviews, Colin had shared, because he had shared that he had been in an episode and kind of thought that had ruled him out of ever being the Doctor.
Yeah.
But actors got to work, so he took the gig, but was a little disappointed. And then later finding out that he did that was kind of nice.
Well, it's kind of funny that he gets to shoot the Doctor at the end of episode 1.
Yes.
So that was, I guess, his first move in taking over the part from Peter Davison.
Yes, like, oh, hey,
And he got to say that he shot the Doctor, so...
Yeah, the Klingon method of advancement.
Exactly.
To mix our metaphors, mix our systems, yeah.
Sci-fis, yeah.
Yeah.
And we also had Neil Daglish as Damon. Trivia: this was only the second time that the show had filmed outside of Britain, after City of Death, the Tom Baker classic, written, of course, by Douglas Adams. I always have to mention that. And because they filmed in Paris over there. So they finally got to film outside, and they filmed in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. And Amsterdam apparently was chosen because, well, hey, the BBC recently developed contacts there, and it was cheap to arrange the travel and hotel accommodations. Like, okay, we need a great location, but we need it cheap.
Yes, absolutely.
Which is totally classic Doctor Who.
Absolutely, yes.
Especially during the John Nathan Turner era.
Right.
Of which this is. Another little interesting thing of trivia, I thought. Leela, Tom Baker's companion, played by Louise Jameson, of course, was originally written into the script, but she wasn't available. And for those who aren't aware, because I'm not sure, I don't think we've covered the Invasion of Time yet on Next Stop Everywhere, but okay. Leela is written out. She gets kind of left behind on Gallifrey. And she hooks up with this guy named Andred, who's like a guard or something there. And so she stays on Gallifrey.
Oh, okay.
That's where she was left. And, and she goes on, like Big Finish has done a bunch of Gallifrey audios where she's been a part of that. So you could kind of pick up on what she's been doing while she was on Gallifrey if you're interested. But so it wouldn't have been too far out of the way. Like, well, the Doctor's back on Gallifrey. Let's have him reunite with Leela.
Right. And he mentions her, right?
Yeah, he does. He asked about her.
Mm-hmm.
There's that scene where the Doctor is allowed to go back to like Nyssa's bedroom or whatever, and Damon's there, and with Nyssa they've gotten permission to visit the Doctor while he's being held inside his own TARDIS, and they start talking. Well, Damon, how's my old friend Leela? Catching up with her. But apparently, because she wasn't available. And there was a bunch of certain elements of her character that was very important to the plot in the story. They ended up giving those parts to Nyssa.
Okay.
So it comes off a little out of character almost a little bit for Nyssa because she's using a gun in the story, which she never does. And she's kind of more aggressive, mm-hmm. especially in, like calling out the Time Lords, threatening them with the gun to release the Doctor. So it was essentially these were lines that should have gone to and actions that should have gone to Leela, but were instead rewritten for Nyssa.
Okay.
Thought that was interesting. And of course, we got to talk more about Colin Baker's performance as Commander Maxil, the, shall we say, overly eager head of security on Gallifrey.
Yes.
With a very hilarious looking helmet with a big plume on the front of it. Yeah.
All of the Gallifrey helmets are just a little bit silly looking.
Well, the regular guards aren't too bad because they kind of look like football helmets almost without the mouth guard.
Yeah.
But, the red and the white. But when you put that plume on top, this big, bushy colored plume, multicolored plume, that's a little too much. A little pomp and circumstance. So anyway, Colin Baker's performance as Maxil was apparently, according to Colin Baker, producer John Nathan Turner kept telling him to tone it down. So probably knowing Colin Baker, he was very shouty and talked at the top of his voice and, and got really aggressive and a little bit over the top, probably more than once. So that performance apparently brought him to the attention of the production office. And shortly after the production of Arc of Infinity, the assistant floor manager on Arc of Infinity, Lynn Richards, invited Colin Baker to her wedding reception. And there were some other guests there, including Ron Jones, the director of Arc of Infinity, Peter Davison, Sarah Sutton, script editor Eric Saward, and John Nathan Turner.
Okay.
And apparently, according to Colin Baker, he said this in multiple interviews, that supposedly because he was so entertaining at this wedding reception, that's what apparently led to his being cast as the Sixth Doctor.
Oh, okay.
So again, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Absolutely.
So hooray, nepotism, right?
Yep. Nothing wrong with that. Right.
So, but anyway, so Colin gets the part, takes over from Peter Davison because he was apparently oh so charming at a wedding reception.
Yeah, there's a couple other things that in the TARDISfandom.com site that you kind of mentioned it, but supposedly John Nathan Turner had to tell Colin, it's called Doctor Who, not the bloke who's a guard in the background.
Yeah.
And I guess Colin Baker has also said, you already brought this up once, but he said I was gunning for Peter Davidson's part when he shot him. And Davidson did say he seemed to enjoy shooting me a little too much. So,
yeah, that was always something that, Colin would say at conventions and always say he'd get big laughs.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very funny line.
Yeah, it is.
So, yes.
So it makes for a great anecdote, if nothing else.
Absolutely.
All right. So we have 4 topics.
Okay.
So I thought topic number 1, let's start off the bat with, of course, the 5th Doctor, Nyssa, and then let's also talk about Damon.
Okay.
Let's save Tegan for a separate topic.
Okay.
So Jesse, in this story, we get the 5th Doctor. Omega is trying to essentially use his genetic code that was apparently illegally leaked by Councilor Hedin, as we find out during the course of the story, so that Omega can cross over from the antimatter universe into the positive matter universe, this universe. So as a result, in order to prevent Omega crossing over and therefore causing the destruction of the universe, the 5th Doctor is recalled back to Gallifrey, where he's quickly given this order of termination to essentially take him off the board. So if the Doctor's dead, therefore Omega can't use him to cross over. And Nyssa is very protective of the Doctor in the story and goes so far as to even, like I said, threaten the High Council and the Lord President. And we also had Damon helping the Doctor and Nyssa try to get to the bottom of what's going on and help the Doctor's case. So what did you make of these 3 characters in the story?
So it's always fun to see the 5th Doctor and his I liked his, kind of, where he repaired, some of the circuits. It's like,
yes.
I don't know why I put that off,
Right.
And then she's like, well, there's a
That's
whole
one of my
other
quotes,
things.
by the way.
Huh?
That's one of my quotes, by the way. I'll save it save it for our quote section.
And then, and then like, oh, well, there's a whole other things. And, and a typical guy like, oh, no. I leave my honeydew list away. I've done one. We could get those the rest. I found it first off, it appeared, didn't we just recently watch another episode where we were trying to let ancient Time Lords out of a prison so that they could retake things? This was an ancient Time Lord, not in prison, but was in, the Matrix.
I think you're talking about Shada.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that was, where there was like a Time Lord prison.
Yeah, so maybe that's why, because it was shot, it was never shown.
Yeah.
That's why they thought they could do this.
Did you enjoy seeing the Doctor on Gallifrey?
I do. I first off, I always go, Gallifreyans are arrogant
a-holes.
arses.
Yes.
They just are every time. I mean, like, even the one nice Gallifreyan ends up being the villain, right? The one guy that seems
Hedin,
to be,
Now Damon at least was helping him out.
Yes, he was, and it does seem it's the people seem to be good people. It's the higher ups, the actual ruling council, the elders, the executive, group, the elite.
Everybody in charge.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, what does that remind me of?
Yes. Everyone in the goofy helmets. and I find comfort in knowing that if we're in Gallifrey, they're going to be jerks, and they re-stress why the doctor had to get out of town.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this is I can't handle this. I don't quite understand.
If he's the guy in charge, can you blame him for wanting to leave?
Oh, no, I can't blame at all. I also would be, if I was the doctor, I would have pushed back a little bit more on their plan. Like, okay, there should be a different way to do this than, well, hey, we're worried you're going to be the catalyst, so we're just going to kill you. Whoa, time out. Like, we can't. Let's talk about Plan B or Plan C.
Well, they to be fair, they did say time was a factor.
I understand, but that also shows once again their arrogance, right? Like
yes.
there can't be another option, and it's not important. Their society is more important than any individual. So it was neat to see. Like I said, I liked seeing all the different. Like Nyssa.
Yeah, what did you think of Nyssa in this story?
Like I said, she was really, I thought she was strong and good. I liked how defensive she was of, in supporting the doctor, making the argument, not afraid of the Time Lords. And also, I think her and, Damon teamed up well, and there was some nice chemistry there, not in a necessarily romantic way, but just in a, hey, let's work
in a working relationship.
Yeah, I thought it was really well done. Yeah,
it was a good team.
It was a very good team. Yes.
Yeah, even though I talked about how a lot of what it would have been given to Leela was given to Nyssa.
Yeah.
I think it really helped Nyssa because. I think it actually worked because we get to see a different side of Nyssa. Because typically Nyssa's the nice one. She does what she's told by the doctor. She's the scientist. She's she's the calm, rational one that kind of dials everybody down from their various rants and is a voice of reason. And so to see her being so protective of the doctor, because again, it's just her and the doctor at this point. There's no other companions for, we've talked about how Davison's TARDIS team there's a lot of people going on because you had either, Tegan or Adric or Turlo around. So at this point, it's just the doctor and Nyssa. And so she kind of realizes, well, hey, I got to be the one to protect the doctor because there's nobody else looking out for him right now.
And one of the things I think that really worked is because Tegan and Nyssa weren't together, they both got a fair amount of story time. They both got a lot of screen time. They both got their own stories. And if you had told me
something to do,
if you had told me like, okay, we're gonna have parallel storylines, one in Gallifrey, one in Amsterdam, I would have went, okay, how's that going to work? But it ended up working really well. I thought it was nice. Like I said, this was I went into this not knowing anything about it, and the moment I saw there in Gallifrey, I was like, okay, this will be fun. And I know we're going to talk about Colin later, but just seeing the Doctor interact with his quote unquote peers, the other Time Lords, is a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was. I mean, and it also it's always great to see the Doctor butting heads with them because he's the anti-establishment character, and they're obviously the establishment on Gallifrey.
Yeah.
So you get to see him mix it up, and obviously the Doctor's got all this distrust toward the High Council, probably for a lot of reasons that we're not privy to. And you get that sense, even though without getting all the details, you kind of feel that there's a history there between the two.
But to be fair, Charles, they've shown us nothing for us not to think that there is a, I mean, they, there's sometimes you can make the argument like, oh, well, okay, I can see their side of it. But each time we see them, they are just arrogant and holier than thou. And you do see, I love Davison pushing against it. The Doctor, and also he gets to be clever when he's and it is it's Doctor Who, it's the 80s, so
Yeah.
the cheesy, he's like, he's sitting with the little spangled, like he's in the Matrix or whatever,
Well, that's what it is. It is the Matrix. Yeah.
him,
The repository of all time knowledge. Yeah.
so that was fun to watch.
Yeah, if you have the DVD, there is an improved special effects option. And that's not one of the effects that gets upgraded, but some of the others get a little CGI upgrade if you're curious.
Okay, good.
So you might want to track that down. But yeah, I obviously being Davison guy, I really, really enjoyed the Doctor in this one. He's fighting for his life.
Yeah.
And he's fighting to stop Omega, and he's having to deal with all the bureaucracy nonsense of the Time Lords on top of it.
Yeah.
So he's got to, he's juggling all these things. And then on top of it, Nyssa is going, ready to shoot the High Council. So he's got to talk her down on top of everything.
We do see a lot of ray guns this episode. There is a lot of the, little drawn in red laser beam that when they're shooting people. So that was fun.
And again, those get an upgrade on the DVD.
I bet they do. Yes.
So just a little selling point. But yes, originally, it was just this kind of very simple, at least for maybe not so simple back then, but simple now.
Yes.
Like right now, I could do that probably on my computer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But very interesting, though. All right. Second topic, unless you had anything else.
Nope, I'm good.
All right, second topic. Let's move to Amsterdam in this topic. So let's talk about Tegan, who shows up looking for her lost cousin Colin, who's been apparently backpacking with this guy named Robin throughout Europe or whatever. And Robin and Colin get themselves in a little bit of trouble, shall we say. And so let's talk about Tegan, Robin, Colin, and let's throw in the Ergon, the rather chicken-like thing that's kind of a henchman for Omega that is not one of Doctor Who's finest monsters, I will admit.
Yes, I agree with that. At this point, I did not know that Tegan was not on the TARDIS. Right, and so
because we're going out of order, so you wouldn't have seen Time Flight. We haven't talked about Time Flight yet.
Yeah, and so that was interesting. That, and I love the comment where that sounds like, I didn't write it down, but it's something like that sounds like kind of the stuff that the Doctor would get involved in. Like maybe this is and she's trying to help.
So to kind of set that up real quick.
Sure.
Yeah, she at the end of Time Flight, through various circumstances, Tegan is brought back to the airport at Heathrow, where she's been trying to get back for several episodes.
Right.
After getting brought into the Doctor's TARDIS, so she finally gets back to Heathrow. But Nyssa and the Doctor take off without her. She gets left behind.
Mm-hmm. So
here we are, like months later in her timeline. We pick up and find out, what she's been up to. And, apparently she got her hair cut. She really kind of like a pixie cut short. And we find out later at the very end of the episode that she lost her job as a result of traveling with the Doctor.
Yes.
She got sacked. So that's kind of where we pick up with her. Did you find that too confusing?
No. In fact, it was. Since
you hadn't watched Time Flight.
Yeah, in my mind, I was like, okay, well, I wonder how many episodes she's been gone. Was this something where she had to be on holiday? Because it seems like the Doctor Who actors need to go on holiday all the time, and so therefore they have to be out. Or was this something? Was there a plan that they didn't have her in the TARDIS and they brought her back? So
I think there was a plan because Time Flight was the end of Davison's first season.
Okay.
Season 19. So essentially that was kind of like a cliffhanger.
Okay.
At the end where, Tegan's left behind. And fans were at the time, obviously it was just before my time, before getting into Doctor Who. But fans were kind of wondering, well, is Tegan written out of the show?
Right.
Is she done because she's not traveling with the Doctor and Nyssa now? And so when this story, the first story of the next season, season 20 takes place, Tegan returns and she looks a little different, and because she got her hair did, so it was more of a surprise that, hey, Tegan's back.
Yeah.
And then she hooks back up with the Doctor and Nyssa at the end to start traveling again with them.
Yeah, and at first I was a little confused as this is my first time watching it, is okay.
Yeah.
Why these two college-age kids traveling? Where is the connection? What's going to go on?
Yeah.
I did think one of them did look. Her cousin, right, was the one.
Yeah.
He looked kind of almost. Not zombie, but he was under control. He looked.
Yeah, he was hypnotized, but he did look kind of like the zombie, like going, like you expect him to go like brain.
Yes, and so once again, because it's October, I thought, oh, I wonder why that's why he picked the episode, because it's very, yeah. So I'm glad how they tied the two together to explain it, and it was good that. At the end, she's like, oh, I got sacked and I can travel now. And so, everyone's back together in the TARDIS moving forward. And I thought that was, I felt good about that. Like, oh, okay, that was a nice little detour. And I bet that, I did not realize it was only one episode. I was thinking maybe she'd been gone 3 or 4 episodes and everyone would be really thrilled she's back. But this was like, no, they reset it almost immediately.
Yeah, at the beginning of the next season. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it just, it is kind of a huge, huge coincidence.
Yes.
That Tegan, who had been left behind by the Dr. Nyssa, just happens to be looking for her cousin, who is under the control of Omega.
Yeah.
Who is, the Time Lord. So it's kind of like, of all the things in the universe going on, it does seem like this really big coincidence. But, hey, it's Doctor Who. They had to get it back on the show somehow, and that's how they decided to do it.
Absolutely.
And it makes sense because, hey, she's looking for a relative, and just that's how she gets involved back in this mystery of what's going on. Now, what did you make of the Amsterdam location? Because it was obviously it's something a little different for Classic Who, because Classic Who rarely got out of the studio. So did you appreciate that, especially that chase through Amsterdam?
It looked nice. It was good.
Yeah.
I keep thinking modern day Amsterdam, there's a whole other subculture there in the coffee shops, in which the students would be enjoying in the modern era. So, yeah, I thought it was kind of cool to see that.
I'm pretty sure they were enjoying it back in the 1980s,
yes,
too.
Probably, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, of course, the Ergon.
Boy.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm looking at this like, okay, where are its eyes?
Feel free to bash on the Ergon.
Where are its eyes? This is like a bird. Like, is this almost looks like an Egyptian, like something out of Egypt. Where's the connection? It was not.
It almost looked hieroglyphic.
Yeah, it was not their finest.
No.
But it's Doctor Who, so you give him a pass.
Yeah, he's kind of like fumbling around like somebody in a costume at an amusement park.
Yes, exactly.
So he's not really turned the right way, and he's very slow moving.
Yes.
The Ergon has been kind of one of those things that kind of like the Merca in Warriors of the Deep, where fans have had fun making fun of the horrible design of the monster. Yeah.
But Classic Who fans would love if someone in Dragon Con cosplayed as them. They would just be,
oh God,
this is greatness. Come here. I've got to have a photo with you. Yeah.
Well, because of the whole campiness of the idea that, like, oh, you're going as this really ridiculous, cheesy character.
That would be great.
That's awesome. That's what makes it cool.
That would make it cool.
In kind of a Mystery Science Theater way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Anything else about Tegan or, all right, Robin or Colin? I would just want to say before we move on, I really did appreciate that Tegan actually tried to help the Doctor by giving him information under torture by Omega in the Matrix.
Yeah, that was very cool.
I know you're kind of making fun of it where they're kind of floating in the Matrix, but it was nice that Tegan, that she knew how important it was for the Doctor to find them. And even though Omega was torturing her, I was glad to see that Tegan stepped up.
Yeah, she did.
And got that out.
I thought that was really well done.
Yeah. I thought it was good. So, because she didn't know if Omega was going to kill her or not.
No, exactly.
So, all right. Topic number 3. Let's talk about the High Council. I'm back to Gallifrey. Let's save Hedin for topic number 4 because I want to save him with Omega. Okay. So right now, let's talk about the High Council. So we can talk about Lord President Barusa, the Castellan, who is obviously very shady, and of course we got to talk about Commander Maxil.
Yeah.
Colin Baker's character. And any, if the other High Council members, you want to talk about them, I don't know.
Yeah.
There wasn't that much to them, but these are kind of the three I'm thinking about. So what did you make of getting to see? Because I think this is your first time seeing the Gallifreyan High Council, isn't it?
I don't know. I think
we did watch the the Five Doctors.
Yeah, and I think not for us, but when Colin Baker was going to be at Comicpalooza and I was going to interview him, Ken recommended I watch The Trial of a Time Lord. And so I think I watched all those episodes. I don't think we've talked about them, but I watched that. Yeah.
We need to do that. I'm thinking that we should need to do that at the beginning of 2021 sometime.
Yeah, that sounds good. We've already, I don't want to beat the dead horse, but yes, they are so arrogant. And I also like the fact that, they're summoning him, yet, even though, his friend brings up, like, we met him with guns. We didn't, like, why would we not? This is,
what can you expect? Can you not expect him to react like this?
Yeah, exactly. And I do think that, you see them rolling their eyes. They, as much as he is dismissive and unhappy with them, they are just as unhappy with the Doctor. I mean, he tasks me. He tasks me.
Exactly. That's a great line. Because they view the Doctor as this big pain in the ass.
Exactly, and just the idea of having to do them, and you have, and the disdain, right? Like, if I remember correct, and I don't know if this was an episode you and I watched together, or this is just in some of my things, right? But like, Baker was selected to be president of the,
Tom Baker, the deadly assassin, So that's another one on Gallifrey you've seen.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, see ya. So, like, has no respect for them. I don't want to defend them because they're arrogant, but I do get the fact that this is a mutual thing. Like, if maybe one of them would be a little more mature and nicer, maybe the other one would. But these are people that he doesn't like them, they don't like him, and it is just, oil and gas, putting together.
Yes.
It's just, and it combustible. I thought it was fun. I liked seeing that.
Now, at this point, Lord President Brusa is probably, apart from, say, Damon and Hedin, is probably the most likely to give the Doctor a fair shake right now.
Yeah.
He's understanding, but he is following, he does go along with what the other council members want.
Right.
He sees the importance of, like, well, Omega is going to cross over, so that's going to be it. So we got to take the Doctor off the board.
Yeah.
But he's not so dogmatic about it.
Yeah.
He's more understanding. And Bruce is a very interesting character because we see him in several stories from the classic era, and it's only in Davison's the next time the Fifth Doctor returns to Gallifrey in the Five Doctors, where Barusa gets revealed as a bad guy in that one. So but for right now, he's good.
The other thing I got a kick out of is because because of the David Tennant final episodes, right? And we see the return of Rassilon, right? I hope I'm saying that right. They mention him, like, based on this, when they're doing some of their rituals, they mention him, and that made me smile. Because,
like the sash of Rassilon and all that,
Yeah.
Because if you notice, Time Lords love pomp and circumstance.
They do.
That's why they walk around these overly ornate,
ceremonial
robes with headpieces. And, they're Time Lords. They're above everybody else.
Yes.
And so they dress the part, regardless of what a fashion faux pas is.
Yes. Well, they think they look good.
Although, personally, I love the Time Lord costumes. I love the ornateness of it. That they're just so elaborate and alien looking, because it's not something that obviously we'd see here on Earth with our leaders. So it kind of gives that alien world look.
Absolutely.
And I did appreciate that. And it's obviously, back in the 80s, this stuff is a lot more it's a lot more tolerable than say it is now.
Absolutely.
This is why they have to kind of, put all, like, nowadays, if you notice, they have like all those little circles that they put into the headpieces and, to make it more decorative and a little, obviously something a little more high def worthy to detail to the costumes. Let's talk about Maxil. So Maxil does what he's told by the Castellan and is more than happy to do it.
Yeah.
He acts like he has a grudge with the Doctor, even though they don't have any prior history. He just acts like it.
Yeah, I wondered if there was a history, whether it was filmed or not filmed, or just, had the Doctor had caused him problems in the past,
If they do, we don't know.
And, I think it's just... It is, I think, because they're so into order and the Doctor embraces chaos at times in a positive way, I think that just irritates them, right? I can't stand that guy. I hate that guy. You can almost see him saying, the Time Lords and the council members saying that. I just can't stand this guy.
Well, they view the Doctor as a renegade as well.
Yes.
So they kind of like put him in that class like Omega or the Master or the Ronnie. Yeah. Even though the Doctor, as we know, is a good person, a good Time Lord, that he's not like the Master or he's not like the Ronnie or Omega. He's not out to take over the universe. Right. He's out to save it. But they don't view it that way. They view him as just this, this someone who goes against everything that they teach.
Yes.
In their society. He's the rebel, the outsider, and we're going to treat him like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
No matter what. And Maxil, more than happy to shoot the Doctor, obviously, as he proves at the end of episode 1. And, he gives the Doctor a hard time even when his friends show up. He's just such a dick about it.
He really is. And
like, he doesn't have to be, but he wants to be.
Yeah, I mean, it almost is this... Like if Time Lord's arrogant, I'm going to be arrogant times 3 because I'm the super important guard and I'm better than everyone else. And Colin plays him well. I mean, you dislike this guy a lot.
Well, Colin is really good at playing dislikable characters.
Yes, he is. Yes.
So he has a natural gift for that.
Yes, he does.
So as a result, he's perfect for Maxil.
He is perfect, yes.
Whatever you may think about him as the Doctor.
Yeah.
And, and I enjoy his Doctor, especially after Big Finish audios. I think he's a great Doctor, but he's also really good at villains.
Yeah.
And so, therefore, he really enjoys chewing the scenery as Maxil. And it's fun to watch, especially... After, obviously in 1983, this was obviously before Colin Baker's run, so it didn't have as much meaning. But now, looking back, you can go like, oh, it's awesome because the 6th Doctor is giving the 5th Doctor a hard time.
Absolutely.
Even though, sort of.
Now, did they address at all why the 6th Doctor ends up looking like this guard in Gallifrey?
No, they haven't. No, it wasn't like with Capaldi's Doctor, the 12th Doctor, that he had seen that face. And it wasn't like they made that connection, like, there was a reason for why he chose that face.
Yeah. It's kind of a hand
I'm sure, I'm sure that, there's a lot of fan fiction out there probably coming up with the reason.
For the same reason, right? Like the reason why when they're in the TARDIS, the Doctor says, well, we'll just go to my companion's room. He could pick any room in the TARDIS, and let's just go to her room. And you go, okay, I'll hand wave that. The reality is that's a set they've already built. They don't want to build another set. That's it. But, so I think the same thing, right? Like, okay, yes, he had a part, but we want him to be the next Doctor.
My idea, like my fanfic idea, is essentially like when the 5th Doctor was regenerating at the end of Caves of Androzani, that essentially the regeneration Wheel of Fortune spun, all and just happened to come up on Maxil's face.
Okay.
And that's what he regenerated into.
That's nice. I like that. I like that a lot. Good.
Just purely randomly. Like, it could have been anybody that the Doctor encountered. Just so happened to be Maxil,
Exactly.
of course. All right. Okay, anything else about the High Council or Maxil?
No.
All right. Fourth and final topic. We got to talk about our big bad.
Yeah.
Omega. So let's talk about Omega. Let's talk about Councilor Hedin, who comes off very friendly, very likable, very, helpful to the Doctor. The only one to, interestingly enough, is the only one who votes to spare the Doctor from death.
Yeah.
During their little High Council vote. Obviously, we find out, well, hey, he did that because, well, he wanted the Doctor to stay alive so Omega could cross over, right? So you kind of an interest in that one. But Hedin somehow bought into Omega and felt that Omega was worth rescuing from the antimatter universe. So what did you make of these two characters?
You make a bargain with Satan, it's not going to work out. And that's, this is where they kind of work that out. I thought it was interesting that he was the only person who seemed to be on the Doctor's side. The only friend, the Doctor says, I'm very glad that my friend at least supported me, and then you find out you get that betrayal. I thought that was a nice little twist, and it made I did not know that was coming. I thought it was pretty fun.
So it surprised you?
It did surprise me, and I was like, oh, okay, well, that's kind of nice. I liked, you once again, right? Is there any good Time Lords? Like, is there ancient Time Lords or in the past that were good? Like, do they have a George Washington or an Abraham Lincoln Time Lord? I just don't see them.
Well, to be fair, Romana was pretty good.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, that's good.
So,
and they mention
at least there's one, right?
Her, right?
Yeah, they do because they're like, well, I think it was Chancellor Thalia's like, well, you didn't bring Romana back like you promised. And the Doctor's like, well, she chose to stay in E-Space.
Yeah.
It's not my fault, okay?
Yeah,
Get off my back.
They had a whole list of things that he had done wrong. That was, hey.
At least as far as they were concerned.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not responsible for Romana if she decides she wants to stay in E-Space.
Exactly, right.
Okay?
Yeah, back off.
Real seriously, right? So Omega, now, like I said, we haven't talked to three Doctors.
Okay.
So I understand, obviously, that you're not familiar with this villain. But Omega, to kind of give a little bit of history for those who don't know, encountered the three Doctors, obviously, and was revealed as, Omega was one of the big architects, like Rassilon, of Time Lord Society. And through his experiments or whatever, he ends up getting trapped in this antimatter universe.
Okay.
And then during the course of the three Doctors, we find out that over time, the antimatter universe essentially destroyed his body.
Okay.
But the only thing keeping him together was his will. So essentially he had no body, which is why you saw him in that full body suit. So it's why when he crossed over, he had to get a body because he didn't have one. And all he was just the force of will holding himself together, his consciousness together. So that's one of the reasons why he kind of makes a big deal, like, after when the Doctor and Nyssa rush to Amsterdam and they confront Omega in the Ergon or whatever, and just as, things are about to go kablooey, and Omega's TARDIS in Amsterdam kind of goes kerpow, and from the rubble, Omega stands up and he takes off his glove, and he's kind of like looking at his hand for the first time. That's why, because it's like, hey, I've got a hand again.
Yeah.
So this worked. And so he's all excited about it. I gather that obviously that's not going to come through in this story.
No, but
like it should.
Yeah, but he was a good villain. And
but I just thought I'd mention in case you were wondering.
No, I was. I am. That's good. I'm glad for the insight.
Yeah, Omega, because he was trapped in the antimatter universe, he was so desperate to get back to this universe.
Yes.
And he was essentially alone in the antimatter universe. He was stranded there. So because of being stranded, though, he went a little cuckoo for Cocoa Puff.
Yes, indeed.
And as a result, because of it, he's insane, especially after losing your body, right? All you are is a force of will. He's got this plan, like he's so focused on, like, I got to get back to the normal universe. even though everybody's telling it, well, if you come back, you're going to blow up this universe.
Yeah.
I don't care. I got to get back. I'm tired of being alone.
You can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs, Charles, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's for as far as he's concerned, he's going to do this. This is going to happen no matter what. But obviously, everybody else has other ideas. And after this big chase, the Doctor finally gets to confront Omega, whose body by this point is starting to break up because that transfer wasn't done properly. Because you kind of see him, like he starts off looking just like a Peter Davison clone.
Yeah.
And he kills a guy as he's trying to escape and puts on his workman's suit and just to try to hide from the Doctor and his companions. So he goes out in the streets of Amsterdam, and there's a nice little clappy music thing going on, and then he starts noticing his hands start breaking. It's starting to get little Rice Krispies on top of it, and it's starting to break down, and then that kind of spreads all over his body to the point where he's essentially now a ticking time bomb that has to be dealt with. So what did you make? I know I kind of set this up a lot, but so what did you make of the Doctor and his choice to shoot Omega at the end of the story?
Well, the Doctor knows what he has to do. Mm-hmm. And,
Did it shock you to see him using a gun?
A little bit, but one of the things, there was a lot of shooting in this episode. So
yes, there was.
So in a lot of ways, I was like, oh, it met the tone of the episode. So I wasn't really shocked, though now that you mention, I should have been like, wait a minute, the Doctor doesn't ever shoot people. Why? He doesn't like weapons. So that was interesting.
Now, to be fair, he was reluctant about doing it.
Yes, absolutely.
He takes his good old time, even though Omega's building up into this bomb almost. This antimatter bomb. But the Doctor finally is like, okay, I got to do this.
Yeah.
And he shoots Omega. And so here's the Doctor taking out one of the legends of Gallifrey. So especially for a Doctor that a lot of fans say is too nice to be the Doctor. Right. I thought it was a very strong moment.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's just my opinion anyway.
But, I felt like he had to, right? He had to send him back. And it was the only way to get him back to that antimatter universe. So he had to. Yeah.
Thought it was a good plan that he had, a good premise for why he's doing what he's doing.
Yeah, I think, he had to do what he had to do. It's a better plan than killing the Doctor to kind of keep the gateway open. So you have to do that. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else about the story?
Well, I did. Once again, I smile anytime a companion makes a comment about the TARDIS doesn't always take you where you want to go. We get one of those lines, and it just makes me smile because retroactively, you see that all those years of Neil Gaiman watching the Doctor, when he had his chance, he's like, okay, I'm going to answer this ultimately, at least my theory on why that happens. And so that made me smile. It always does. And I'm always happy how often it comes up, right? I'm thinking, well, yeah, the modern era, it never goes where he wants it to go. But then you see all the classic errors and people bring it up. So that just made me smile when she said that.
Okay. Well, that's good. Yeah. I'm glad you enjoyed it. All right. Anything else about the story?
Nope. I think it was good. And I do think it's, we've got the gang back together and it's going.
All right. What are your favorite quotes of the episode?
So there wasn't too many. The one, and I'm hoping you got more than one because I think I'm taking one of yours, but
go ahead. I got some others.
I love when the Doctor said, well, you know how it is. You put things off for today. The next thing you know, it's 100 years later. I just loved that quote because he's so self-satisfied. Like, oh, I should have done that forever. And to see that, I like that. How about you? You got a couple for us?
Yeah, kind of following up on that a little bit. You kind of talked about this a little bit earlier. There was an exchange between Nyssa and the Doctor where Nyssa says, "Doctor, there are many other repairs to do." And the Doctor replies, "Well, there's nothing urgent, is there?" Nyssa says, "The navigational system? That must be faulty. We never seem to arrive where we intend. And the doctor goes, well, no. Well, you see, ever since the Cybermen damaged the console, and Nyssa interrupts him and says, and that's another thing. The TARDIS used to be in a state of temporal grace, you said. Guns couldn't be fired, you said.
I love it, yes.
And the doctor's like, yes, well, nobody's perfect.
That's just very nice. Yeah.
And doing it with that great Davison charm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see. Do you have any other quotes? Or
No,
is that
go for it.
All right. Cardinal Zorak. Every time I say Zorak, I want to think of Zorak on Space
Yes.
Coast to Coast. Cardinal Zorak says, each and every time the Doctor returns to Gallifrey, there's violence. And Councilor Hedin replies, perhaps it is we who should modify our approach. And Cardinal Zorak says, he resisted the guard. And Hedin says, we send armed guards when a friendly face and a welcoming hand would have sufficed. Are you surprised that he resisted?
Yeah, that was a good line.
Yeah, it's a good line for a bad guy posing as a
Absolutely,
good guy, right?
Yes.
Let's see. Of course, we got to talk about Commander Maxil and the Doctor. So Maxil, taking the Doctor to be executed, says, I have my orders. And the Doctor replies, you don't have to relish them so much.
Yes, very nice.
And lastly, the Doctor and Omega at the very end, we were just talking about where he shoots him. The Doctor says, I can expel or destroy you, Omega. It's your choice. And Omega replies, too late, Doctor. What you offer is worse than death. If I am denied, then all must perish.
Good.
So, way to make it about you, Omega.
Yeah, way to go, oh man.
Jeez. All right. Well, to be fair, Omega is the end of all things,
There you
right?
go.
The alpha and the Omega.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, so see what I did
I
there?
did see what you did there.
Okay, so episode rating. What's your rating?
So I like this a lot. I give it 8 out of 10 matter converters.
Very nice, very nice. We are in sync.
Okay.
So I give this one also an 8 out of 10. Space-time elements without a recall circuit.
I did like that line. Hey, is there any way you could borrow? Yes.
Yeah, because apparently the Fifth Doctor asked Damon to hook him up. It's like, dude, my man, can you hook me up with another space-time element, preferably one without a recall circuit, because that's not happening again, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, don't want that.
Yeah, so I thought that was good that the Doctor kind of gives himself a little upgrade for the TARDIS in the process.
Absolutely.
All right, so reverse the polarity really quickly. If you enjoyed Arc of Infinity, this was a little bit of a little head scratcher, but I think I came up with something.
Okay.
So if you enjoyed Arc of Infinity, we're going to reverse the polarity. So that means we got to go forward, not backwards, to 2020. Hey, that's a familiar year.
Yes.
So I'm going to recommend The Timeless Children.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so this would be, of course, the 10th episode from Series 12 in 2020, written by Chris Chibnall, where in this story, we have a renegade Time Lord. Hey, just like Omega, right?
Yes.
Only this one is the Master who persuades the 13th Doctor to join him on Gallifrey. So we have Renegade Time Lord, we have Gallifrey.
Yes.
Where he forces her to enter the Matrix.
There you go.
So there's 3 connections right there, and shows her the secret history of Gallifrey and its native Shobogans. He reveals that the Doctor is the timeless child whose infinite capacity to regenerate was studied by a space explorer named Tecteun to turn the Shobogans into Time Lords. And the Doctor's memories prior to childhood, she remembers, were erased, and only now snippets remain. While the Doctor is trapped in the Matrix, the Master lures Ashad, the lone Cyberman, to Gallifrey and shrinks him with his tissue compression eliminator, taking the Cyberium, an AI containing the knowledge and future history of the Cybermen. With this knowledge and the bodies of the Time Lords he murdered, the Master creates a race of infinitely regenerating Cybermen called the Cybermasters, intending to use them to, hey, take over the universe because that's what the Master does.
Exactly.
In the Matrix, though, meanwhile, a vision of the fugitive Doctor from Fugitive of the Jadoon restores the Doctor's belief in herself, overloading the Matrix with all the memories from her past incarnations. Set, of course, to the great Doctor Who theme. A very cool moment. The Doctor regroups with her companions and discovers that Ashad's miniaturized body contains a death particle capable of destroying all organic life on a planet. The Doctor and her friends blow up a cyber carrier, destroying Ashad's army in the process and foiling his plans to rebuild the cyber empire. Finding unused TARDISes, She programs one of them to take her companions home to safety, while Ko-Sharmus, one of the last remaining humans from the end of the Cyber Wars, sets off an explosion that triggers the death particle. The Doctor escapes in another TARDIS as the explosion consumes Gallifrey. Roasted. The Doctor's companions arrive on contemporary Earth in their TARDIS, while the Doctor lands the other TARDIS near her own. However, just as she prepares to take off in her TARDIS, she is arrested by the Jadoon and teleported to a prison located inside a distant asteroid. Dun, dun, dun.
Yes.
To be continued this holiday season.
Absolutely. Yeah, you do wonder. I was thinking about that with the Omega and how that works in with all this new, the new unveiling of how
the expanded history.
Yeah, expanded history. So we're going to see how they do that. So that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, that's obviously something that's, we just introduced the concept, so now we get to play with it. And we'll see what happens. We'll see how it plays out.
Right.
All right. Listener feedback. So we have 2 this time. Of course, Holly Mack and Dave Proctor.
Yes.
So would you like to read Holly's first or Dave's?
That sounds good. I'll read Holly's.
Go for it.
Hey, all.
Hey, Holly.
An interesting episode. The Doctor may want to look into a protection barrier to things trying to enter from the outside the TARDIS and a travel block to Gallifrey. Good idea. It is just or does Omega kind of look like he could fit into an episode of the Power Rangers? The Time Lord's outfits.
That's a fair comparison.
I think it was. The Time Lord's outfits in this episode were interesting. I wonder if they are a ranking system or what sect of Time Lords they belong to. Colin Baker as Maxil is a joy to watch. He can chew up the scenery as a bad guy quite well. You had made that very same point, Charles.
Mm-hmm.
You also think that they would have changed the locks, so to speak, when the Doctor abandoned his post as president.
Yep.
First, I wasn't too interested in the B story until we find out the cousin of the missing teen is none other than Tegan. Nyssa is finally starting to find out how much the other Time Lords have it in for the Doctor and will do pretty much anything to get him out of the way.
We talked about that.
Yes. I was chuckling at the end with Tegan saying she was free to travel with them now that she's out of a job. But the Doctor doesn't look too happy about that. Oh, well, Nyssa should be able to keep things on the straight and narrow. I'll wrap it up here. Holly from Wisconsin. Thank you, Holly.
Okay, it's kind of interesting because, the Doctor kind of shrugs. He's like, oh, so it seems.
Yeah, exactly. Not like, oh, great.
Yeah, she's all like, hey, Doctor, I'm back. And he's like, yeah, great. So maybe it's just he had a hard time expressing his true feelings, I guess. I don't know. All right. Lastly, of course, we have, certainly not leastly, we have David K. Proctor, or as we have to call him Dave, right?
That's right, Dave.
So Dave also writes in about Arc and Infinity saying, I hope this email finds you well. Well, I hope you're doing as well, Dave, you and your family. Again, I'm not as familiar with Peter Davison. I've not yet jumped in with both feet. I'm working my way through Tom Baker right now. Davison seems to be solidly entertaining, though. Yes, he is, in my opinion. I hope yours as well. I was confused when Tegan wasn't there. I've never seen the story. I was glad to see her in episode 2. Well, we kind of talked about why she wasn't there, so hopefully that helped fill in some gaps. That's why I wanted to bring it up. I will have to watch the preceding story, Time Flight, to find out why she wasn't on the TARDIS. Yep. Like I said, it's the cliffhanger at the end. So you don't have to, if you want to just fast forward to the end, there you go. I was fascinated with seeing Colin Baker. Even though I'd never seen the story, I was aware that he had been a part of a Davison story. I guess it isn't explored like when Capaldi wonders why he has the face of a Roman. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, we talked about that. The ending was a bit anticlimactic. One shot from the laser thing and it was over. Yeah, it kind of is, but he was cornered. There was no else for him to go. He's about to go boom, so what else you got to do, right? Mm-hmm. My favorite quote was, never underestimate what the Doctor can do. Yeah, that was one that Castellan said. Would say that I found it unwise to predict what the Doctor can or cannot do.
Ah, nice.
Dave gets 6 recorders hidden inside the control panel. Wait, that's what handled Omega last time. So that's a nice little nod to the 3 Doctors there.
Very
Dave.
Nice.
I see what you did there. Very good. Well played. I do like the Time Lords need the Doctor from time to time.
you would think they'd be a little nicer to him because
You would
they
think,
do,
right? Well, you see what happens when he's not around.
Yeah, exactly.
Then the master shows up, kills all of them, and turns them into Cybermen.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
maybe you should, like Jesse said, maybe you should be a little nicer.
Yeah, just a little bit nicer to him.
A little love, a little something for the effort,
Yeah, exactly.
Dave says, stay healthy, David K. Proctor. So, Dave, please stay healthy as well. Hope you're doing well. Hope your family's doing well. And we definitely appreciate you. And obviously, we also appreciate you, Holly, for writing in. So, thank you, guys. And if you want to be like Holly and Dave, and hey, who doesn't, right? Write to us at nextstopeverywheresmg@gmail.com. That's nextstopeverywheresmg for Southgate Media Group @gmail.com. Or you can find us on the Twitter at nextstopsmg, at nextstopsmg on Twitter. Facebook, of course, Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast, and on Instagram at Next Stop Everywhere podcast. Jesse, I know you've been busy with set listing Bruce.
I have been.
So where can they find all your fine work, sir?
Yes, so you can hear me talking Bruce Springsteen and music. I'm down to only a couple episodes a week after a month of full episodes.
Are you going through withdrawal?
Yeah, no.
You're getting the shakes, the little twitches. I need to record.
Yeah, so Let's Sing Bruce, the Bruce Springsteen podcast, where we just recently had David K. Proper join me, and we've got a couple other. We've got a Skip and Josh podcaster joining me, and a few other people. And coming up as we record this on Friday, new Bruce Springsteen CD out. And so we'll be talking about that a lot coming up the next
So
week.
lots of Twitter posts from Jesse. Heads up, everybody.
Yes. And so we're excited about that. You can hear me doing feedback in one of Charles's podcasts. Oh, by the way, I'm on Twitter at Jesse Jackson DFW, Jesse Jackson on Facebook, Jesse Jackson DFW on Twitter. Charles, where can we hear your great work?
Well, I don't know about how great it is, but you can hear my work.
Absolutely great.
Well, you can hear my work, obviously, on, Ghost with the Twin Peaks podcast, since Jesse was kind enough to set it up, where friend of the show, Zan Sprouse, obviously special guest companion Zan Sprouse.
Yes.
And I obviously talk Twin Peaks. We talk David Lynch films. And right now we are wrapping up our 6-part Twin Peaks actors who have appeared on the X-Files little retrospective. And we're going to be doing this week, actually tomorrow, as long as Zan's healthy enough, we're going to record Sanguinarium, which is the 6th episode of X-Files Season 4, and which features Richard Bamer, who played Benjamin Horne on Twin Peaks, and also years and years later on Twin Peaks The Return. He reprised his role. And this one's an interesting little episode, little creepy one. I gather, Jesse, you just watched this one last night.
I did. I watched it last night. A very creepy episode.
Good.
A fun episode. A little gory. And
Good.
Yes, I know that makes you happy. Yeah,
Very
so
happy.
I am working on my email to give my feedback on it. And I will make sure you have it in time to record.
Well, thank you. Yes, we definitely appreciate you writing in, because it's great to have you part of Ghostwood.
Yes.
All right, and just to give everybody a heads up, probably after now that we finish our X-Files retrospective, we're probably going to be discussing David Lynch's film The Elephant Man.
Oh, interesting.
Which, of course, starred Sir John Hurt, the late Sir John Hurt, our beloved war doctor.
Yeah.
As the Elephant Man. And great tour de force. Anthony Hopkins is in the movie. The great Hannibal Lecter. Dr. Hannibal Lecter is in the movie.
Yes.
So highly recommended. And we're going to be reviewing probably the new Criterion Collection edition that just came out.
Oh, nice.
So it's a whole new remaster and Criterion release. So it should give us lots to talk about. So that'll be a lot of fun. Hope everybody checks that out. Also, the Phantom Zone podcast, where Jesse's kind of taken, he's not caught up with this. He's a little behind on his viewing.
Yes.
So I've asked DJ Nick, special guest companion DJ Nick, to help me out. And we're currently talking The Boys Season 2. We're doing it episode by episode. And we just recorded the first episode, which I just posted today, so it should be available, called The Big Ride. If you want to go through our review of Boys Season 2, we'll be doing this for the next 7 weeks after The Big Ride. So we'll be doing week by week. So it'll be a nice, good old way to help us finish out 2020. And Nick is just on form. He's great. So if you enjoy Nick on this podcast, I definitely recommend you checking out the Phantom Zone podcast as well.
Yeah, he's awesome. He really is.
We had a lot of fun talking to boys last night, or a couple nights ago.
I bet.
And then also Titan Talk the Titans podcast. I'm only going to mention really quick, obviously Jesse and DJ Nick are part of that as well. But right now we're kind of on hiatus, waiting for Titans Season 3 to arrive on HBO Max. So that one's kind of dormant at the moment. But if you want to get caught up on our Titans discussions or our Doom Patrol discussions, please check out Titan Talk the Titans podcast.
Absolutely.
All right. We definitely appreciate it. I'm sure Jesse would as well.
I would.
All right. Everybody, next time on Next Stop Everywhere, we're going to be heading into the Colin Baker era, of course, with episode 206 as we discuss, brace for it, Time Lash.
Nice.
One of the most notoriously bad Doctor Who episodes throughout Doctor Who's history. So for all of you who have kind of give us a little hard time because we always talk the great episodes, well, here's a stinker for you. So, because, hey, we have to talk about the bad ones too, right?
Yes, we do.
So needless to say, the ratings will probably not be as high as 8 on this one, I'm guessing. Okay. So what this is obviously, we're running low on the Colin Baker episodes. It was down to Time Lash or Trial of a Time Lord, season. So I want to kind of save that so we can review those all in a row.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it'd be fun to do all 4 stories in a row.
I think so.
So I want to save that for 2021, presuming there is a 2021 at this point, because 2020 has been so hard. But so that leaves Time Lash left to talk about before we get into Big Finish audios. So it's a very interesting one. We get a very annoying depiction of a young H.G. Wells in this one.
Oh, okay.
And a rather odd-looking big bad called the Borad. So we'll see how that plays out. And a lot of wooden acting and a lot of not great storytelling. So this should be an interesting one to talk about, needless to say.
Sounds good.
And I'm sure a lot of people may enjoy Time Lash, and if you do, that's awesome. I'm all for it. I don't want to deprive any Doctor Who fan of liking anything, but
exactly.
Just kind of give yourselves a heads up that we probably will kind of make fun of it a little bit.
Okay, good. All right.
So we'll be doing that next time. Jesse, any final thoughts before we sign off?
No, just I'm looking forward to it. It was a lot of fun. And this was a good episode. This was, it was kind of a bonus that we got to see Colin playing, the smirky guard. You get
2 doctors in this one, right?
We get to, yeah, it is. It's very nice.
All right.
Good.
So everybody, thanks again for listening. And we'll come on back for episode 206, Time Lash. It's going to be fun. One way or the other, it's going to be fun. So I promise you, trust me on this. And we'll see you next time right here, Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.